The meeting room was too bright. Daehan noticed this immediately when he walked in. The lights were set for alien eyes, not human ones. He did not complain. Instead, he sat down at the long metal table and placed his hands flat on the cold surface. Across from him sat 3 aliens. The tallest was Vakran, a Vrel commander with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. Next to Vakran was a Keth representative, covered in scales that clicked when it moved. The third was a Torvan, small and round, with too many eyes. Yuna stood behind Dae, holding a data tablet. She was his assistant, but also much more. She handled intelligence, research, and kept Dae informed about everything happening in the galaxy. Today her face was calm, but Dae could see the tension in her shoulders. "We are here to discuss the mining colonies," Dae said quietly. His voice was soft, almost gentle. "The human settlements on the 3 outer worlds." Vakran leaned forward. His 4 arms crossed over his massive chest. "There is nothing to discuss, human. Those worlds belong to the Galactic Coalition. Your people are squatters. You will leave." Dae did not react to the insult. He had heard worse, much worse. Those colonies have been there for 20 years. Families live there. Children were born there. We can find a solution that works for everyone. The Keth representative made a hissing sound. Humans always want to negotiate. Always talking. You are weak. You do not belong in this galaxy. Yuna's grip tightened on her tablet. Dae raised one hand slightly, a small gesture. She relaxed. "Just a little. I understand your concerns," Dae continued in the same gentle tone. "The Coalition has been in space for thousands of years. Humans are new. We are still learning the rules. But we are here now. We are part of this galaxy too." Vakran slammed one of his large fists on the table. The metal made a loud sound that echoed in the bright room. "You have 1 week. Evacuate the colonies or we will remove you by force. The Coalition has voted. The decision is final." Dae looked at each alien in turn. His dark eyes were calm. His face showed no anger, no fear. "Force is not necessary. Give us time. Give us a chance to find another solution." "There is no other solution," the Torvan said in a high-pitched voice. "You are outnumbered, outgunned. The Coalition has 10,000 warships. How many ships does humanity have? 200? 300? You cannot win this fight." Dae was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was even softer than before. "I am not here to fight. I am here to find peace." Vakran stood up. His massive form cast a shadow over the table. "Then you will fail, human, 1 week. That is all." The 3 aliens left the room. Their footsteps faded down the corridor. Dae remained seated, his hands still flat on the table. Yuna walked around to face him. "They won't negotiate," she said. "The Coalition has made their decision." Dae nodded slowly. "I know. What do we do?" "We try again tomorrow. And the day after, until the week is over." Yuna sat down in one of the chairs the aliens had left empty. She looked at Dae carefully. She had worked with him for 3 years now. In all that time she had never seen him raise his voice, never seen him angry. He was always calm, always patient, always looking for peaceful solutions. But there were things about Dae that puzzled her. Sometimes she caught him staring at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. There were scars there, old ones, faded but still visible. When she asked about them once, he simply said they were from a long time ago. And there were moments when someone mentioned certain places or certain battles from the past. Dae's face would change for just a second. Not much, just a slight tightening around his eyes. Then it would be gone. Her tablet buzzed. She looked down at it and froze. There was a message, encrypted, high-level security. She opened it with shaking fingers. The message was short. "The Reaper protocol has been activated. Stand by for further orders." Yuna looked up at Dae. He was watching her now. "What is it?" he asked. She turned the tablet so he could see. Dae read the message. His expression did not change. "I see," he said quietly. "What does it mean?" Yuna asked. "What is the Reaper protocol?" Before Dae could answer, the door to the meeting room opened. A human officer in a dark uniform stepped inside. He looked at Dae and straightened to attention. "Sir, Terran High Command is requesting secure communication. Priority level Alpha." Dae stood up. "Thank you. I will take it in my office." The officer nodded and left. Dae looked at Yuna. "Go back to our quarters. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be another long day of negotiations. But the message, we will discuss it later." Dae said gently. "Trust me." Yuna wanted to ask more questions, but something in Dae's eyes stopped her. She nodded and left the room. Day walked alone through the corridors of the space station. Other diplomats and aliens passed by him. None paid much attention to the quiet human in simple clothes. He was just another negotiator, just another peaceful talker trying to avoid conflict. He reached his small office and locked the door. The secure communication was already waiting. A face appeared on the screen. Admiral Park, commander of the Terran Defense Fleet. Day, the admiral said. I am sorry. We tried to give you time. I know, Day replied. The coalition will not listen. Then we must prepare. The colonies cannot be evacuated in 1 week. We have 500,000 people on those 3 worlds. What are my orders? The admiral was quiet for a moment. The same orders you always hated. The same orders we swore we would never give you again. Day looked down at his hands. The scars seemed darker in the dim light of his office. I understand. Your old unit is being reassembled. They are already on their way. You have authorization to use any means necessary to protect those colonies. Any means, Day repeated softly. Yes. Commander Han, you are no longer a diplomat. As of this moment, you are reinstated to active military duty with full command authority. Day closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed. Something small but important. Acknowledged, Admiral. I will prepare defensive operations. The communication ended. Day sat alone in the darkness of his office. Somewhere on the station, in the alien quarters, he knew that Vakrin was celebrating. The Vrel commander thought he had won. He thought the weak, soft-spoken human had given up. But in another part of the station, in the diplomatic archives, a Keth ambassador was searching through old files. His claws clicked rapidly on the computer keys. He was looking for something. Something about the human negotiator. Something that was bothering him. The Keth found the file. It was old, 15 years old, marked with high-security seals. The ambassador broke through the encryption. What he saw made his scales turn white with fear. He ran from the archives. He had to find Vakrin. He had to warn him. The Keth burst into Vakrin's quarters without knocking. Vakrin turned, angry at the interruption. What is the meaning of this? The Keth could barely speak. The human, the negotiator. I found his file. His military record, so what? He is a diplomat now, a talker. No, the Keth said, his voice shaking. He was a soldier, a commander. Before he became a diplomat, he led the human forces in the Outer Rim Wars. Vakrin's forearms dropped to his sides. What are you saying? The Keth pulled up the file on his device. He showed Vakrin the image. It was Day Han, but younger, wearing military armor, covered in the dust of battle. The caption beneath the image read, Commander Day Han, Special Operations. Known by enemy forces as the Reaper. Vakrin stared at the image. He whispered one word, impossible. But it was not impossible. It was true. And somewhere on the station in a dark office, Day Han was making calls. Sending messages, preparing for a war that Vakrin had just started without knowing it. The galaxy was about to remember why gentle words were sometimes the most dangerous sound of all. Vakrin could not sleep. He kept staring at the file on his screen. The image of the young human soldier looked nothing like the gentle diplomat he had met in the conference room. Yet they were the same person. He read the report again. 15 years ago on a planet called Krios 7, a human battalion had faced an invasion force of 50,000 Keth warriors. The humans numbered only 800. Any military commander would have predicted total defeat within hours, but that was not what happened. The battle lasted 3 weeks. The human commander used tactics that no one had seen before. He divided his small force into dozens of smaller groups. They attacked from everywhere and nowhere. When the Keth thought they had surrounded the humans, they found themselves trapped instead. Supply lines were cut. Communication systems were destroyed. Officers were eliminated by snipers who appeared like ghosts in the night. The Keth warriors began to fear the darkness. They began to fear silence. Because when things were quiet, that was when the humans struck. By the end of the first week, 5,000 Keth were dead. By the end of the second week, another 8,000 had fallen. The survivors stopped calling the human commander by his name. They called him the Reaper because death followed wherever he went. On the 20th day of the battle, the Keth fleet arrived with reinforcements. But instead of continuing the fight, 12,000 Keth warriors laid down their weapons and surrendered, to 800 humans. It was the most humiliating defeat in Keth military history. Vokran put down his screen. His hands were shaking. He had just threatened the Reaper. He had demanded that the Reaper surrender human colonies. He had given the Reaper 1 week. I am a fool, Vokran said to himself in the empty room. The next morning, Dahan arrived at the conference room exactly on time. He wore the same simple clothes as before. His face was calm. His voice was gentle when he spoke. I hope we can continue our discussion today. Vokran looked at the human differently now. He saw the scars on Day's hands. He saw the way Day moved very carefully, as if always aware of everything around him. How had Vokran missed these signs before? I have read your military record, Vokran said carefully. Day was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. I see. That was a long time ago. I am not a soldier anymore. But you were. You were the Reaper. That was my call sign, yes. A name given to me by my enemies. Not a name I chose for myself. The Torvan representative leaned forward. Why did you leave the military? Why become a diplomat? Day looked down at his hands. I was tired of war. Tired of death. I thought that if I could talk to people, really talk to them, maybe I could prevent battles instead of fighting them. Maybe I could save lives instead of taking them. Noble words, the Keth representative hissed. But words will not change the coalition's decision. You still have 6 days to evacuate the colonies. Then I will keep talking for 6 days, Day said softly, because the alternative is something I do not want. Something none of us should want. The meeting continued for 3 more hours. Day presented compromise after compromise. He showed economic data. He explained how humans and aliens could share the mining resources. He offered to pay fees to the coalition. He offered to limit the colony populations, but the answer was always the same. No. When the meeting ended, Yuna was waiting outside. With her were 2 other humans. Day's face changed when he saw them. Not much. Just a slight widening of his eyes, Jin, Day said quietly. Hyewan. It has been a long time. Jin was a tall man with strong arms and a wide smile. He had been Day's weapons specialist during the war. Now he wore the simple clothes of a freighter pilot. Too long, Commander. I heard you needed help. Hyewan was shorter, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been Day's best sniper. Now she worked as a medic on a colony world. The old crew is getting back together, she said. Just like old times. I hoped it would not come to this, Day said. Jin's smile faded. We all hoped that. But hope does not stop battleships. They walked together to a more private area of the station. Yuna followed, confused and curious. In a small briefing room, Day pulled up tactical displays on the screen. The coalition is moving a fleet to the colonies, Day explained. 47 warships. They will arrive in 5 days. Our defense fleet has only 8 ships in the area. 8 against 47, Hyewan said. I have seen you win with worse odds. That was different. That was ground combat. This is space warfare. Different tactics. Different rules. Jin studied the display. The human ships are smaller but faster. We can use that. Yes, Dee agreed. But it will not be enough to just fight. We need to make them afraid. We need to make them remember. Yuna finally spoke up. Remember what? Day turned to look at her. For the first time since she had known him, his eyes were hard. Not angry. Not cruel. Just filled with absolute certainty. Remember that humans do not surrender. Remember that humans do not run. Remember that when you fight humanity, you pay a price that makes victory taste like defeat. Over the next 3 days, Day continued to attend the peace negotiations. He still spoke gently. He still offered compromises. But everyone in the room could feel that something had changed. The soft-spoken diplomat was still there, but something else was there too. Something older. Something dangerous. At night, Day met with Jin and Hyewan. They planned. They studied the coalition fleet movements. They sent encrypted messages to the 8 human ships waiting near the colonies. Yuna learned more about Day's past. She learned about the battles he had fought, the soldiers he had led, the enemies he had defeated. But she also learned about the cost. She saw old photos of Day's unit. So many young faces. She asked what happened to them. Some lived, Day said quietly. Some did not. I remember every name, every face, every family I had to write to. Is that why you speak so gently now? Yuna asked. Day nodded. Every soft word now is a life I might save later. Every compromise I offer is a battle we might avoid. Every hour I spend talking is an hour that mothers and fathers get to keep their children, but they are not listening to you. I know, but I have to try. I have to try until the very last moment. On the fourth day, the coalition fleet began to move. Vokrin called an emergency meeting. When day arrived, the Vrel commander was standing, all four arms tense. Your time is running out, Vokrin said. Evacuate now or face the consequences. Day stood on the other side of the table. His hands were relaxed at his sides. I am asking you one final time. Please do not do this. There is still time to find peace. You cannot win, Vokrin said. You have 8 ships. We have 47. You have no chance. Day was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was still gentle, but there was something underneath it now. Something that made even Vokrin step back. Commander Vokrin, I have spent 3 years trying to be a better person, trying to be someone who solves problems with words instead of weapons. But you are forcing my hand. You are forcing me to become someone I worked very hard to leave behind. Are you threatening me, human? No, Day said softly. I am warning you. I am telling you what will happen if your fleet attacks those colonies. I am telling you that you will lose ships. You will lose soldiers. And when it is over, when the smoke clears and the bodies are counted, you will ask yourself why you did not listen to the gentle words when you had the chance. Vokrin's scales turned a darker shade of blue. You are one person. You cannot change what is coming. Day turned to leave. At the door he stopped and looked back. I am not one person, Commander. I am 800. 800 soldiers who fought together. 800 soldiers who survived together. 800 soldiers who are spread across the galaxy now, but who will come when I call, because that is what we do. We answer, we fight, we win. He left the room. Yuna hurried after him. In the corridor, she grabbed his arm. Is it true? Will they really come? Yes, Day said. They are already coming. Jin and Hewan were just the first. That night, Day made one final call. It went directly to Terran High Command. His voice was calm and clear. This is Commander Day Han. Authorization code Reaper 77 Omega. I am requesting activation of Operation Silent Fall. The Coalition has refused all diplomatic solutions. They will attack human colonies in 48 hours. I am taking command of defensive operations. The Admiral on the other end was silent for a moment, then confirmed. Operation Silent Fall is active? May God help them. Day ended the call. He sat alone in his quarters. He thought about all the battles he had fought, all the enemies he had faced, all the friends he had lost. He had worked so hard to become a man of peace, to be someone who saved lives instead of taking them. But tomorrow he would have to become the Reaper again. And the galaxy, which had forgotten his name, was about to remember why that name had once made armies tremble. Outside his window, the stars looked cold and distant. Somewhere among those stars, a coalition fleet was coming. They thought they were coming to claim empty colonies. They thought they were coming to fight a small, weak defense force. They were wrong. They were coming to face the Reaper, and the Reaper never lost. The colony world of New Jeju hung in space like a blue-green jewel. 500,000 humans lived on its surface. Farmers, teachers, engineers, families. They did not know that 47 warships were coming to force them from their homes. But they were about to find. Ao Dehan stood on the bridge of the human destroyer called Iron Will. The captain was a man named Tae Woo, young but experienced. He had served under Day during the last year of the Outer Rim Wars. When the call came to defend New Jeju, Tae Woo had volunteered immediately. Fleet status? Day asked quietly. Tae Woo pulled up the tactical display. 8 ships total, Commander. 3 destroyers, 2 frigates, 2 patrol cruisers, and the stealth carrier Ghostwind. Total crew, 2,400. And the coalition fleet, 47 warships. Estimated crew, 90,000. They will arrive in 6 hours. The other officers on the bridge were silent. The numbers were clear. This was not a fair fight. This was barely a fight at all. It was supposed to be a massacre, but none of the officers looked afraid. They had all served with Day before. They knew what he could do with impossible odds. Commander Sumi is ready with the Ghostwind, Tae Woo said. She is in position on the far side of the moon. Day nodded. Sumi commanded the stealth carrier, a ship designed to hide from sensors and strike without warning. During the war, Day and Sumi had developed tactics that no enemy had expected. They were about to use those tactics again. Jin walked onto the bridge carrying equipment cases. Weapon systems are loaded and ready. We have some surprises for our guests. Hyawan was at a medical station preparing for casualties. She looked up at Day and gave him a small nod. She was ready too. Yuna was at a communications console. She had insisted on coming despite Day's concerns. I am not leaving, she had said firmly. I have worked with you for 3 years. Let me help now when it matters most. Day had agreed. Yuna was smart and capable, and he needed every skilled person he could get. Open a channel to all ships, Day said. Taewoo pressed some controls. Channel open, Commander. Day spoke quietly, but his voice reached every ship in the small human fleet. This is Commander Daehan. In a few hours, we will face an enemy that outnumbers us 6-1. They have more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. By every measure, we should lose this fight, he paused. On every ship, crew members stopped what they were doing and listened. But I have fought battles like this before. I have faced impossible odds before. And I have won before. Do you know why? Not because we were stronger. Not because we had better weapons. But because we refused to give up. Because we adapted. Because we thought faster and fought smarter than anyone expected. Another pause. Day's voice grew even softer, but somehow more intense. Behind us is a colony of 500,000 people. Mothers, fathers, children, they trust us to protect them. They trust us to stand between them and harm. Today we will prove that trust is not misplaced. Today we will show the galaxy what 8 human ships can do when they fight for something that matters. We will not fight like them. We will not line up and trade shots in open space. We will fight like humans. We will be clever. We will be quick. We will hit them where they are weak. And we will make them bleed for every meter of space they try to take. Day looked around the bridge at the faces watching him. I will not lie to you. Some of us may not survive today, but our families will survive. Our colony will survive, and the enemy will remember this day for the rest of their lives. They will remember the day they learned that humans do not break, that humans do not run, that humans fight, he finished simply. All ships prepare for combat operations. Execute Plan Reaper 7. The channel closed. Across the small fleet, crew members returned to their stations with renewed purpose. They were still outnumbered. They were still outgunned. But they were not afraid anymore. The Coalition fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 47 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They were confident. They were organized. They expected the human ships to either run or surrender immediately. They did neither. Commander Vakran sat in his command chair on the Coalition flagship. His tactical officer reported, 8 human ships detected. They are holding position near the colony world. 8, Vakran repeated. Only 8. Do they not understand basic mathematics? Perhaps they are hoping we will be merciful, another officer suggested. Vakran was not sure about that. He had read the Reaper's military record. Mercy was not something the Reaper expected from enemies, and it was not something he had shown in the past. Hail the human fleet, Vakran ordered. A communication channel opened. Day's face appeared on the screen. He looked calm, too calm. Commander Vakran, I wish we could have resolved this peacefully. You still can, Vakran said. Surrender now. Evacuate the colony. No one needs to die today. You are right, Day said softly. No one needs to die today. You can turn your fleet around and leave. The colony stays. We all go home. You know I cannot do that. And you know I cannot surrender. Day leaned forward slightly. Commander, I tried to warn you. I tried to tell you what would happen, but you would not listen to words. So now I must teach you with actions. The communication ended. Vakran felt a chill run through his body. Something was wrong. The Reaper was too calm, too confident. All ships advance on the human fleet, Vakran ordered. Weapons free. Target their largest ships first. The Coalition fleet moved forward. 47 warships against 8. It should have been over in minutes. The first sign that something was wrong came when the human ships did not fight back. They scattered in different directions using the colony world's gravity to accelerate. The Coalition ships pursued, breaking formation to chase their targets. That was exactly what Day wanted. Now, Day said quietly. From behind the moon, the stealth carrier Ghost Wind appeared. It had been hiding there for hours, sensors dark, waiting. The Coalition fleet had passed right by it without noticing. Sumi's ship launched 36 attack drones at once. They were small, fast, and equipped with powerful explosives. The drones spread out and slammed into the rear ships of the Coalition fleet. Explosions lit up the darkness of space. 3 coalition ships were destroyed immediately. 4 more were badly damaged, their engines failing, their hulls breached. "What is happening?" Vakran shouted. "Where did those weapons come from?" But there was no time to answer. The human destroyers had stopped running. They turned and opened fire on the closest coalition ships. Their weapons were not as powerful as the alien guns, but they were more accurate. Human gunners hit critical systems, engine rooms, weapons arrays, command bridges. 2 more coalition ships went silent, drifting in space. "All ships regroup," Vakran ordered. "Reform defensive positions." But it was too late. The human ships were moving through the coalition fleet like sharks through a school of fish. They never stayed in one place. They never faced more than 2 or 3 enemies at once. They used the debris from destroyed ships as cover. They used the planet's gravity to slingshot around and attack from unexpected angles. This was not the battle the coalition had prepared for. This was chaos. This was terror. This was what the Reaper did best. Inside the Iron Will, Day stood calmly at the tactical display. He watched the battle unfold. He saw patterns that others missed. He saw opportunities that others did not notice. "Tewu, bring us about to bearing 270. Target that Keth cruiser's port side." "Yes, Commander." "Yuna, send coordinates to the Ghost Wind. Tell Sumi to hit the flagship's communication array. I want Vakran def. Sending now. Jin, prepare torpedo spread. Target the 3 ships forming up near the moon. Fire on my mark." "Ready, Commander." Day watched the display. He waited. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. Mark, torpedoes shot through space. All 3 hit their targets. 1 ship exploded. The other 2 lost power and began to spin out of control. The battle continued for 2 hours. By the end, the coalition fleet had lost 12 ships completely destroyed and another 9 badly damaged. The human fleet had suffered damage too. 1 frigate was limping, its engines barely working. A destroyer had lost half its weapons, but all 8 human ships were still fighting. Vakran stared at his screens in disbelief. 12 ships. 12 ships lost against 8 small human vessels. It was impossible. It was humiliating. It was exactly what had happened on Krios 15 years ago. "Commander," his tactical officer said quietly, "we should retreat, regroup, get reinforcements." Vakran wanted to argue, wanted to order his fleet to keep fighting, but he looked at the numbers, looked at the damage reports, looked at the casualty counts. More than 4,000 coalition soldiers were dead. For what? To take a colony that would cost even more lives to hold? "All ships," Vakran said slowly. "Fall back. Retreat to rally point 7. The coalition fleet turned and jumped away. They left their dead behind. They left their damaged ships behind. They ran. On the bridge of the Iron Will, the human crew cheered. They had done it. They had won. 8 ships against 47. And they had won, but Day did not cheer. He looked at the damage reports from his own fleet. 14 humans dead, 53 wounded. Ships that would take weeks to repair. It was a victory, yes, but it had cost them. "Commander," Yuna said quietly. She stood beside him, looking at his face. "We won." The victory in space should have been the end of it. The coalition fleet had retreated. New Jeju was safe. But Commander Vakran was not the type to accept defeat easily. 3 days after the space battle, Day received a message. It was from his intelligence network in the coalition territories. The news was bad, very bad. "They are sending ground forces," Yuna said, reading the report. "Transport ships carrying 50,000 soldiers. They will land on New Jeju in 48 hours. Day stood at the window of his temporary office on the colony surface. He could see the town below. Children playing in the streets. People going to work. Families sitting down to dinner. All of them safe because of the battle in space 3 days ago. But that safety was temporary now. 50,000, Jin said, looking over Yuna's shoulder at the report. "We have maybe 3,000 colonial militia. Not trained soldiers. Just farmers and factory workers who know how to use rifles. Then we train them," Day said quietly. "We have 48 hours. We teach them how to fight, how to survive, how to make the enemy pay for every meter of ground." Haiwan crossed her arms. "It is not enough time, Commander. These are not soldiers. They are civilians. I know, but they are our civilians, our people. We will do what we can with the time we have." Day turned to face his old friends. "Jin, I need you to organize defensive positions around the main settlement. Anti-aircraft guns, barricades, anything that will slow them down. HFY. Set up medical stations in protected locations. Yuna, coordinate with the local government. I need population counts, evacuation routes, emergency supplies. What will you do? Yuna asked. I will go to the landing zones. I need to see the ground, need to understand the terrain, need to plan where we fight and where we retreat. A young man in colonial militia uniform stepped into the room. His name was Siak, barely 20 years old. He had heard the stories about the Reaper. When he learned that Commander Daehan was the legendary warrior, he had volunteered immediately to serve. Commander, the militia is assembled, Siak said. They are ready for your orders. Day nodded. Good, take me to them. The militia was gathered in a large warehouse near the center of town. 3,000 men and women of all ages. Some looked confident. Some looked terrified. All of them looked determined. Day stood in front of them. He did not raise his voice. He never did, but somehow everyone could hear him clearly. I am Commander Daehan. Some of you may have heard stories about me. Some of those stories are true. Some are exaggerated. But I am going to tell you the truth right now. The truth is this. In 2 days, 50,000 enemy soldiers will land on our world. They have better weapons than us. Better armor. Better training. By all normal rules, we should lose, he paused. Let the words sink in. But we are not going to follow normal rules. We are going to fight the way humans have always fought when our backs are against the wall. We are going to use our knowledge of this land. We are going to use speed and surprise. We are going to make them afraid of every shadow, every corner, every building. I cannot promise you that everyone will survive. I cannot promise you that this will be easy. But I can promise you this. If we stand together, if we fight smart instead of fighting hard, we can make them regret ever setting foot on our world. One of the militia members raised her hand. She was older, maybe 40. Commander, how do we fight 50,000 soldiers with only 3,000? We do not fight them all at once, Day said simply. We fight them in small groups. 10 of us against 50 of them. 20 against 100. We hit them and disappear. We make them chase us into places where their numbers do not help them. Urban areas, forests, underground tunnels. Places where 50,000 feels like 5,000. He looked around at all the faces. I know you are afraid. Fear is good. Fear keeps you alert. Keeps you careful. The enemy will be afraid too. They have heard what happened in space. They know the Reaper is here. Use that. Let them worry about every sound, every movement, every shadow. For the next 2 days, Day worked without sleeping. He taught the militia basic tactics. How to move in small groups, how to use cover, how to fall back without panicking, how to set up ambushes, how to make every shot count. Siak followed Day everywhere, learning everything he could. The young man watched how Day spoke to people. Always gentle, always patient. Never yelling, never showing frustration even when someone made a mistake. Commander, Siak asked during a break, why do you speak so quietly? In all the stories I imagined the Reaper would be loud, fierce. Day looked at the young man. Loud voices do not make people better soldiers, Siak. Loud voices make people nervous, scared. I want our people to think clearly, to act calmly. The enemy will be loud. They will try to scare us with noise. We will answer with silence, with precision. Is that how you won at Creo 7? Day was quiet for a moment. At Creo 7, I learned that the scariest thing in a battle is not the enemy who screams and charges. It is the enemy who says nothing, who watches, who waits, who strikes when you least expect it. That enemy lives in your mind, makes you doubt, makes you afraid of every quiet moment. The transport ships arrived exactly when intelligence predicted. They came down through the atmosphere like falling stars. 50,000 coalition soldiers landed in 3 separate zones around the main settlement of New Jeju. Day watched from a command post on a hill overlooking the town. Jin was with him, along with Siak and a dozen militia fighters. They are setting up their base camps, Jin observed, looking through electronic binoculars. Standard military procedure. Defensive perimeters, command tents, supply depots. Good, Day said quietly. That means they are thinking like soldiers, following their training. That makes them predictable. What is our first move? We wait until dark. Then we show them what fear feels like. That night, the coalition soldiers in the northern camp felt confident. They had overwhelming numbers, advanced weapons, strong fortifications. The small human resistance could not possibly stop them. Then the attacks began. Not a large assault, not a massive charge, just small groups of militia fighters appearing out of the darkness, firing a few shots, destroying a supply truck, disappearing before anyone could respond. The coalition soldiers fired back at shadows, at sounds, at nothing. They wasted ammunition shooting at ghosts. In the eastern camp, explosives destroyed 3 aircraft on the ground. In the southern camp, snipers eliminated officers who were foolish enough to stand in well-lit areas. By dawn, the coalition had suffered 300 casualties. But they had not seen more than a dozen human fighters. They had no idea where the attacks were coming from. No idea where the attacks would come next. Fear began to spread through the coalition camps. Soldiers jumped at every sound. They saw threats everywhere. Some refused to leave the safety of their tents. During the day, Day rotated his militia forces. Some rested, some trained, some prepared for the next night's attacks. The enemy had 50,000 soldiers, but they could not use them effectively. They were spread out, nervous, tired from lack of sleep. This continued for 5 days. Hit and run, strike and fade, never giving the enemy a clear target, never fighting a battle they could not win. But on the 6th day, something changed. The coalition forces had brought in a new commander. Someone smarter, someone who understood what Day was doing. The enemy changed tactics. They stopped defending their camps. Instead, they pushed into the town. They forced civilians into conflict zones. They used numbers and strength to corner the militia groups. During one engagement, Siak's squad was trapped in a collapsed building. The enemy surrounded them. There was no way out. Day heard the report over the radio. Siak's voice was scared but steady. "Commander, we are pinned down. They have us surrounded. We cannot retreat." Day looked at the tactical map. Siak's position was deep in enemy territory. A rescue would risk dozens of lives. A commander thinking only about numbers would leave them, would sacrifice 12 to save dozens. But Day had never been that kind of commander. "Hold your position," Day said into the radio. "We are coming." Jin looked at him. "It is a trap. They want you to try a rescue. They want to draw out the Reaper." "I know," Day said. "That is why it will work." Day gathered 20 of his best fighters. Hewan was with them. They moved through the town like smoke, using back alleys, underground tunnels, routes the enemy did not know existed. They reached the building where Siak was trapped. The enemy had 50 soldiers surrounding it. Day's team had 20. "Positions," Day whispered into his radio. His team spread out around the enemy, silent, invisible. Then Day stepped into the street, alone, unarmed, his hands empty at his sides. The coalition soldiers turned, surprised. One of them, an officer, stepped forward. "The Reaper," the officer said. "You are going to surrender?" "No," Day said quietly. "I am going to give you a chance to surrender. Leave this building. Leave this town. Return to your ships. This is your only warning," the officer laughed. "You are one man. We are 50. Your people inside are going to die, and so are you." Day's expression did not change. "I gave you a chance. Remember that." He dropped to the ground. The 20 hidden fighters opened fire at once. Perfect shots. Perfect timing. Half the enemy soldiers fell in the first 3 seconds. Day rolled, grabbed a weapon from a fallen soldier and fired twice. 2 more enemies down. On the 8th day of the ground war, Day made a decision that surprised everyone. He was going to end this fight personally. "You want to do what?" Yuna asked, staring at him in disbelief. "I am going to board Vakran's flagship," Day said calmly. "I am going to force a surrender from the top." Jin shook his head. "That is suicide. His ship has thousands of soldiers on it. You cannot fight them all. I do not need to fight them all. I only need to reach Vakran." Hewan understood what Day was planning. She had seen him do similar things during the war. "You are going to make them afraid. Make them think you are everywhere." "Yes," Dee said. "The coalition soldiers down here are tired, scared. They have been fighting shadows for 8 days. If I can capture their commander, if I can show them that even their flagship is not safe, they will break. They will want to go home." "And if you die?" Yuna asked quietly. Day looked at her. His eyes were tired but determined. "Then you continue the fight. You know my tactics now. You know how to lead. The militia trusts you. But I do not plan to die. I plan to win." The plan was risky. Some would say impossible. But Day had done impossible things before. Sumi's stealth carrier, the Ghost Wind, approached Vakran's flagship in the middle of the night. The Coalition sensors could not detect it. The ship was too quiet, too small, too clever. Day would lead the boarding team. Jin and Hewan insisted on coming with him. 10 other soldiers volunteered. 12 people total, against a ship with a crew of 5,000. They used a small boarding pod. It attached to the flagship's hull like a tick on a dog. Cutting tools burned through the metal. Alarms went off inside the ship, but by then it was too late. Day's team was already inside. The corridors of the flagship were wide and bright. Coalition soldiers ran everywhere, trying to find the intruders, but Day's team did not fight them. They moved through maintenance tunnels, service passages, routes that most of the crew did not even know existed. "Where are we going?" one of the soldiers asked. "The bridge," Dee said simply. "We take the commander, we take the ship." They moved like shadows, like ghosts. When they encountered enemy soldiers, they struck fast and silent. No guns, no explosions, just quick, efficient movements that left enemies unconscious on the floor. Jin disabled security cameras. Hyewan covered their rear. The team moved deeper into the ship. Volkran sat in his command chair listening to the reports. "Intruders on deck 7. No, deck 9. Wait, they are on deck 12. "How many?" Volkran demanded. "We do not know, Commander. They are moving too fast, disappearing before we can get a clear count." Volkran felt ice in his blood. He knew. He knew who was on his ship. "Seal the bridge. All security teams to bridge access points, now!" But Day was already 3 corridors away from the bridge. He could see the security teams gathering, 40 soldiers blocking the main entrance. "We cannot fight through that," Jin said. "We do not need to," Day replied. He looked up at the ceiling. There is always another way. They climbed into the ventilation system. It was tight, uncomfortable, but it led directly above the bridge. Day's team crawled through the narrow spaces like serpents. Below them they could hear Volkran giving orders. Could hear the tension in his voice. Day found an access panel. He carefully removed it. Below was the bridge. Volkran was directly underneath them, sitting in his command chair. Around him were a dozen officers and guards. Day looked at his team. He held up 3 fingers. 2 fingers. 1 finger. They dropped through the ceiling like rain. The bridge erupted in chaos. Guards reached for weapons. Officers shouted. Alarms blared. But Day's team was faster. Jin disarmed the closest guard. Hyewan disabled the communication systems. The other soldiers secured the exits. Day landed directly in front of Volkran. The Vrel commander stood up, all 4 arms reaching for weapons. But Day was quicker. He had a weapon pointed at Volkran before the commander could move. "Order your forces to stand down," Day said quietly. Volkran stared at the human, at the small team that had somehow infiltrated his flagship. "You are insane. You cannot win. There are 5,000 soldiers on this ship." "Yes, but they are not on the bridge." "You are, and you are going to give the order to retreat. All forces, space and ground. You are going to leave New Jeju and never return. Or what? You will kill me? My officers will just continue the attack." Day's expression did not change. "I will not kill you, Commander. I will do something worse. I will let you live with the shame of losing to 12 humans. I will let you explain to your superiors how the Reaper boarded your flagship with a tiny team and took it from you. I will let you face your people as the commander who failed." Volkran's scales turned pale. That was worse than death, to lose with such overwhelming advantage, to be defeated so completely. "The ground forces have orders to attack the civilian centers at dawn," Volkran said. "If I do not stop them, thousands will die." "Then stop them," Day said softly. "Make the call. Order the retreat. End this now." Volkran looked around the bridge, at his officers held at gunpoint, at his security systems disabled, at the small group of humans who had done what should have been impossible. He sat down slowly in his command chair. He opened the communication channel to all coalition forces. "This is Commander Volkran. All units cease fire. Begin immediate withdrawal. Return to transport ships. We are leaving this world, Commander," one of his officers on the ground asked. "We are winning." "We have them surrounded." "No," Volkran said quietly. "We never had a chance of winning. Retreat, that is an order." The channel closed. Volkran looked at Day. "You have your victory, Reaper. Take it and leave." "Not yet," Day said. He lowered his weapon. "I need you to do one more thing." I need you to tell the Galactic Coalition what happened here. I need you to tell them that humans are not primitives. We are not weak. We are not leaving our colonies, and if they try to force us again, we will fight again, and we will win again. You want me to humiliate myself even more? No, Day said. I want you to save lives. Yours, mine. The lives of all the soldiers on both sides who will die if this war continues. Tell the Coalition the truth. Tell them that fighting humanity costs more than it will ever be worth. Bakran stared at the human for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I will tell them, but they may not listen. Then we will teach them again, Day said, as many times as necessary. Day's team left the flagship the same way they came, through the shadows, through the hidden passages. By the time the Coalition security teams reached the bridge, the intruders were gone. Down on New Jeju, the Coalition forces began to withdraw. Transport ships descended from orbit. 50,000 soldiers boarded them in confusion and relief. They had been fighting shadows for 8 days. They were exhausted, afraid, haunted by an enemy they could never quite see. The militia watched them go. Watched the ships rise into the sky and disappear. When the last ship was gone, a cheer went up across the colony. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. Sok found Day standing alone on the hill overlooking the town. The young man approached carefully. Commander, the enemy is gone. We won, Day nodded slowly. But he did not look happy. We survived, Seok. 58 of our people died in this battle. 58 families will never be whole again. That is not a victory. That is a tragedy that we were forced to endure. But we saved the colony. 500,000 people are safe because of you. Day turned to look at the young man. Not because of me. Because of everyone. Because farmers and teachers picked up weapons to defend their homes. Because young men like you were brave when you had every reason to be afraid. Because we stood together. He placed a hand on Seok's shoulder. You asked me once why I speak quietly. This is why. Every loud word I could have said, every threat I could have made would have been one less chance for peace. Yes, we had to fight. Yes, people died. But I tried everything else first. I will always try everything else first. Seok understood. You are not the Reaper anymore. You are just Day. No, Day said gently. I am both. I am the man who wants peace. And I am the warrior who will fight when peace is impossible. Both are necessary. Both are real. In orbit, the ghost wind docked with the Iron Will. Sumi and Taewoo greeted Day with respect and relief. Jin and Heewon began the work of repairing the damaged ships. Yuna handed Day a message tablet. This just came from Terran High Command. The Coalition has agreed to negotiate. They want to discuss the colony situation. When? In 1 week. Back at the Harmony's Edge station. Day smiled slightly. It was a tired smile but genuine. Then I will go back to being a diplomat. Back to talking. Back to finding peaceful solutions. Do you think they will listen this time? Yuna asked. Yes, Day said. Because now they understand the cost of not listening. Word of the Battle of New Jeju spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. The story of how 8 ships defeated 47. How 3,000 militia fought off 50,000 trained soldiers. How one man boarded a flagship with a tiny team and forced a surrender. The name Reaper was spoken in every bar, every military academy, every government building across Coalition space. Some spoke it with fear, some with respect, some with disbelief, but everyone knew it now. Everyone understood what it meant. It meant that humans, despite being newcomers to the galaxy, were not to be underestimated. It meant that pushing humanity too far came with a terrible price.